This is Tweak with the 7th episode of the Shazpod. We're going to have an interview with the art director today. So far joining me is Joni the Juicy J.
Hello.
Greth.
Yep.
And the art director, HiRezSean.
How's it going?
Greth, I believe, have the first question, so go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so take your time in answering this. It was kind of a critical issue right now on the forums as well. Are you responsible for the fish?
What happened with that was the one of my old buddies off the GA team came over to the tribes team, and he started touching up the maps, and he just decided that fish would be a good idea. And I thought, hey, why not? It was a cool particle effect, and I didn't really think that it was going to catch on like it did. I don't know why people pay so much attention to that, but...
Us either.
Yeah, it was really weird to just see that. But hey, everyone just went along with it in common Web 2.0 viral form and just, took it away a bit, maybe too far. Are we going to see more fish-related things?
We've joked about, I think in the forums, somebody mentioned having cougars in the Dry Dock Night map, and I thought that was a funny idea. But I don't think we'll be spending that much time on little Easter eggs like that. But you'll probably see some other funny particle effects somewhere.
Nice. About how many people work with you in the art department?
Well, for the longest time, it was really more... it was me and another character artist, Adam, and then 2 environmental artists. So we had a very, very small team for a long time. We've kind of ramped up our team since then. We brought some people over from other teams to kind of help finish the project. So we're a really small art team.
That's really... I didn't expect that. I figured there'd be a few more people on it. Before doing, being the director, what were you more specifically arting up?
For the Tribes project or other projects?
Any project in general. What's your background in game art?
Let's see. I started off as I kind of have a weird past. In college, I was programming, and I kind of jumped over to art at some point. Decided I liked that better, and then I joined some mod teams, did some mod work. I did the Forsaken mod for Half-Life that I think we never actually officially released, but. And then I did some contract work for small stuff for Guild Wars or something, and then some other games, and then joined with HiRez, and then I worked my way from associate character artist up to where I am now. So
yeah, that's really cool because, well, the one thing everyone's been complaining about balance and this and that, but I must say the way this game looks visually is just incredible, and that you guys started off with 1 or 2 people. It's strange because congratulations, I'll say to that, even though a lot of people are willing to actually turn everything off at one point, but don't worry.
Yeah, I honestly think it looks better than any Tribes I could ever dream of.
I appreciate that. I mean, I did play Tribes 2 mostly. I was a little young for Tribes 1, but everybody knows how high the skill curve is for Tribes. So I I did play Tribes 2, and I looked back at Tribes 2, and I really when we started the Tribes project. We started out as Tribes Universe, as you guys probably already know, and so what we did was me and Adam went through all of the vehicles and most of the weapons and remodeled them. So for the longest time we had just rough models almost straight from Tribes 2 in the games that we had remodeled. But so that's how we started, and I really wanted to bring back things like the Diamond Sword style, which was my favorite faction, so that's probably why they look more like Diamond Sword than the other faction. But and there was this sense of what do we bring back and what do we update, and the analogy came Batman Begins instead of Batman and Robin. So it's kind of a re-envisioning of the art, but still overall people could recognize it. I think we get slammed for looking like Halo, but really what I see in that is that we have a lot of color and a lot of current shooters don't. So, and we're sci-fi and stuff like that in space, so people just jump to the closest game they can think of.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of comparisons of Halo.
Well, I do see where that come from, because Halo has a lot of green sloping maps, and of course they don't move fast, they don't do all kinds of awesome things we get to do, but it's still great outdoors sloping maps, and most shooters nowadays are basically corridor shooters.
Yeah, it's all the brown stuff. And
So, yeah, indeed, the first thing they leap to is the most played outdoor shooter of all time, as far as I know.
Yeah, and nothing against Halo, because I absolutely adore their art style. I had a friend who actually worked on Halo Reach, so that they have great looking games, and I really wish that we could have the workforce behind our art team that they do. But I think we do pretty well with what we have.
Oh,
yeah,
certainly.
You
agree.
make it look like you actually have, because, well.
Here's a kind of an interesting one. Given the storied history and large amount of standard art from previous games, you kind of touched on this earlier. How much originality were you actually allowed? Because you said, you stuck with the Diamond Sword look, but Blood Eagle, I've noticed, looks quite a bit different. How much originality were you guys given for things like that?
Well, I mean, we own the IP now, so technically I could do whatever I wanted to, but I'm not going to go in and completely remove any element of what people remember about Tribes, because a big part of the nostalgia is what you see. And I mean, from the style of Diamond Sword to all the way down to the mortar launcher. If you look at it, I looked at videos of the mortar launcher and fired it locally on my desk and watched how the smoke spiraled, and I tried to bring that back and kind of update it again. So I mean, we really did go and look at what things people would remember, just even little things I wanted to bring back. So as far as what I had to do, nothing really. I mean, I could just do whatever I wanted to, but I mean, just like any other Tribes player, there's a lot of things that I remembered and liked. So like the Shrike, the silhouette is very much like the old Shrike. I mean, if you look at the details, it's different, but
Yeah, I definitely catch a lot of the silhouette features, including even things like, I'm glad you mentioned the trails on objects, because the smoke trail for the Raider grenade launcher reminds me so much of the smoke trail from the regular grenade launcher from the other Tribes
Indeed.
games.
Yeah, and the light spin fuser being the spin fuser, basically, and the sound actually being the same, I think a lot of people appreciate it as well.
Yeah, what happened with the spin... What happened with the spin fuser was kind of funny. We originally had planned to do one spin fuser, and the game designer Scott wanted to kind of split them up a little bit, and he wanted to give a spin fuser to each one. And I said, well, why don't we just give them the 3 different spin fusers from the different games? And I think people were laughing at me because they thought that I didn't know that the Tribes Vengeance spin fuser, that I called the Tribes Vengeance spin fuser, was not ever in Vengeance. I know it wasn't ever in Vengeance. What we did was we did the first one, and I combined the spin fuser from Tribes 1 and the Tribes Vengeance spin fuser into one spin fuser, and then I didn't want to go back and do the old spin fusers from Vengeance, so we used the alpha build spin fuser. So
see, I knew there was something about that. I was wondering something about that happened.
I agree. I have been looking for images and seeing where the third came from, and hearing that it's a hybrid makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly the one. I wanted to bring back elements from all 3 originally. It ended up being more Tribes 1 and Vengeance mixture, but that's where it came from.
Well, that's another thing. Now, with all the balance going on and stuff, does it hurt when people scream the hand reloading, for instance, like I've done personally? Would you mind if it went away, that all that modeling work went to waste because some things just, need to go or whatever?
No, I mean, it doesn't really hurt my feelings at all. I think I get slammed in Tribal War for being sensitive, which I'm not, but I understand that people want to just see basically the game mechanics only and not art. And I played Quake for years, and I watched people play Quake 3 with super low settings where everything was super muddy, and they picked the biggest character model, which I forgot his name, and he was like lime green or something, and they just want to see the pure game mechanics going on, nothing with art because it gets in the way. I understand that. I mean, that's why we did the small hands mode, and if it's still in the way, then I might consider doing something else, but there are reasons for the business model that we did what we did. So
Yes.
So have you ever, this might be a little interesting one for you to answer, have you ever made a decision in the art that ended up changing the balance of the game?
I think in the patch right now, when we did the particle LEDs, I went through all the particles and kind of did low settings. I think people think that I nerfed the Raider because you can't see the thumper right now. But no, I mean, there are things like, the sniper scope that people just absolutely hated, which I was like, okay, well, we'll go back on that one. I mean, internally, everybody was like, yeah, I like it, it's pretty cool. And I was like, okay, we'll push it to beta and see what happens. And people hated it. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt my feelings. I was just like, okay, well, if you guys don't like it, we'll go with something a little bit more visible, I guess.
Interesting. So when you guys are doing your design, are you guys actively conscious of balance, or is that something that you throw in and then realize, oh wow, this is what people are saying about it and how it affects the game?
Well, I think I have some idea of how it will affect the game, but what level, I'm not always. I can't really see that far into the future. So, I mean, I'll try to like not block the screen or do things like that. But if people have a problem with it, tell us about it and we'll fix it. So, I mean, like the mortar launcher, it's like 1/10 of a second your hand passes in front of the cursor or the crosshair, and I don't know if anybody noticed, but we did actually drop the mortar launcher to not ever pass in front of your crosshair. So.
Oh wow, I actually hadn't noticed that, but I did notice it because I haven't played Heavy in a while, but I did notice it at one point crossing over and it bugged me, but I haven't seen the change in it. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, the small weapons really changed that, I think, because now it doesn't pass the crosshair anymore, whatever you do, so.
Yeah, we're trying to be more conscious about that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously we're artists first, and when you're working on something, it's totally different than playing it, obviously. So you're trying to make something really awesome, and a lot of the time when you frame the animation of the weapons reloading, you'll have a tendency to put all the really cool detail right in the middle of the screen because you're like, hey, look at my cool animation, and we ended up dropping it. So just keep letting us know in the forums, if there's a problem, and we'll fix it.
Yeah, that's what I've found really interesting with the art team and the map team is just how much they spend in the forums reading things, reading suggestions, and implementing them. It's really awesome of you guys.
Yeah, I mean, everybody does that. Even Scott reads the forums, and Stu especially will go through the forums and kind of give us feedback from people who, it's just kind of like the overwhelming feeling of people if we've missed it. So there is a lots of reading forums now. As far as us being active in the forums and posting in every thread, that's not really going to happen. But we do listen to what happens in the forums.
Yeah, I think right now there's a lot of melodrama in the forums about that, and I'd say a lot of the suggestions that I see are also worrying. So it might be best to just keep out. Otherwise, people are just going to constantly throw stuff at you that might seem a little silly to people in the competitive scene, especially.
Yeah, I mean, we take everything to heart, but at the same time, it's like, well, I understand that from your perspective, you think that's very important, but overall, I mean, what's healthy for the game and what's healthy for new players coming in and things like that, that's, what's most important to us is what's healthy for the game overall. So.
Yeah.
Now, about something I've personally blown way out of proportion. I was wondering if there maybe is an aesthetics reason why meter accolades only work on kills and not on hits as well.
I think that's a conscious decision, not to award credits on hit and instead of award them on kills. I think at one point we did have mid-airs on hits, and I personally I'm fine with them being on hits as long as maybe they don't give credits, because it kind of throws off the balance of how many credits people have to use things like call-ins and vehicles. So it wasn't it was a decision from game design to not do that.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, we'd be fine with no credits, just the sound, really.
Yeah, personally, I would like a sound, or even it being added to the counter at the end of the match. Credits are not necessary. It's just e-penis and recognition.
I totally get it. I mean, the mid-airs are difficult. So
especially for me playing Pathfinder, I usually make more mid-airs that don't kill than the ones that do kill.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and on the sniper scope as well, I'd appreciate the little dot in the center so I know what the middle is, especially long range.
That's actually something that I personally stopped playing. Well, I'm a sniper in pretty much every other game I played, in Railgun, Horror, and Quake, but my problem with the Sentinel was that it does not have an exact center, and that made long-distance shooting almost impossible for me, because at really long distance, the entire player fits into the circle.
Okay. You mean in the scope?
Yeah, in the exact center of the scope, there's a circle, not a closed dot. And at long range, the icon for the player fits inside the circle. You don't really know if you're going to hit or not.
Yeah, I think that was at some point we were kind of trying to decide whether or not we should have open crosshairs, I guess is what you'd call them, versus the dot in the middle. And we I think at one point we haven't really gone back and done a final pass on the crosshairs, so I'll definitely bring it up. I think that at one point we were thinking it would be better to have very, very small negative space, open space in the middle of the crosshair, so you could, how players in tribes are like, a few pixels tall, basically. So we felt it would be easiest to see the player inside of the negative space and shoot the player that way, instead of having a dot that literally covers up the whole character. That's probably why we did that, but I'll bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, people are sniping perfectly now. Well, a little less now with the patch, but for the really high-skilled people, it's probably not going to be a problem. I mean, I think one of our snipers in our team doesn't have a problem still, but it's really with those really long-range kills that, I mean, for regular folk who don't specifically just do the sentinel, it might be nice to know where they're aiming at. Even because, for instance, if you have a flag carrier going around, your first instinct will actually be to try and shoot the flag, because that's the one thing you see clearly over long distances at any quality level. And yeah, so it might be nice to see that guy under it a little bit more clearly, and with the dot actually know you're shooting him.
Sure, we'll hit that up when we do a second pass on that.
Very nice.
This one goes back to a little bit earlier in the conversation and a little bit earlier in the design process. Basically, oh shoot, where did it go?
It's very far in the conversation.
There we go. What has the team's process been, starting at concept and going to finished product? What was kind of the workflow of that whole idea?
So typically the way we work on specific assets is we will take, for example, the spin fuser, go back to one of the original tribes, look at what it is, take a bunch of screenshots, and do a rough model, and that rough model is brought into the engine and rigged and put into the game, and we actually play with the rough model to make sure that it works, and the animators are happy and the modelists are happy, and then we'll if we do a full pass, which we don't always do, we'll have a concept artist come behind and draw over the model and make sure that we get lots of nice detail that people are used to these days in shooters. And then from there, I'll kind of work with them and review it and make sure that it's on the right track. Like the light spin fuser, I was very specific about what I wanted, which was, almost exactly an updated version of the old spin fuser from Tribes 2, but also, new elements that would make it fit the game world that we had created as it was. So that's typically the way we'll go about it. You'll do the high poly model, project it to low poly, do the textures, put in the game. Pretty straightforward process as far as art goes. It's no different than any other game per se. It's just we have that that process of going back, 1998 graphics and taking that and trying to update it. So that's tough, and trying to hit the nostalgia button is not always easy to do, but that's typically what we do. As far as that, same goes for for vehicles, and then characters, maybe a little bit more freedom there. I think that we took a lot of the motifs from Diamond Sword, of the gilding and the ornate embossing, and the gold armor, gold and silver armor. Those things we kind of went back and took, but it's not really any that different than any other game that's in development now.
Yeah, was there actually a decision to make Blood Eagle kind of the focus point though? Because you've been working the most on Diamond Sword, but the preview characters are all Blood Eagle.
Yeah, I think Blood Eagle was actually the first group that we had done as far as character models go. Adam, the other character artist at the time, did those, and I was doing Blood Eagle. Not Blood Eagle, Diamond Sword guys. So I think at the time we were really crunched for assets. We were really trying to get the game out there, but at the same time we had a small team, so we were trying to rush to finish. So there was this big crunch for for I think it was PAX East, the first big announcement.
Yeah.
And so we went and we were crunching for a week or two to get those done. And he finished first, and it was rigged and posed, and we were like, all right, we're good to go. We have lots of good promotional assets, and so that one got out there first. And then Blood Eagle is it is a focus of the game fictionally. I don't know how far you guys want me to go into fiction, but there is some decent fiction written for our game, Tribes Ascend, that I like a lot. It is focused obviously on Blood Eagle Diamond Sword, but in this case, I think Blood Eagle are the good guys in a way.
I haven't seen your own fiction, but I guess if we wanted to play fiction battles, Catabatic is a Star Wolf base in the Tribes lore, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't match up exactly, but for the fiction, we borrowed the level design from Catabatic, and in the fiction, it's a Diamond Sword base on a similar or the same planet, basically. I don't really think that we went into super specifics about that, but it is obviously a Diamond Sword base if you look at the structure. So
yeah, there's a lot of hints. In the start of the rounds and stuff, that we already know that Diamond Sword were the instigators of the war, because that's already hinted and stuff. But funny enough, because Blood Eagle are usually the guys, messing everything up, so that they're actually going to defend the values of the tribes for once.
Right, and in Tribes Ascend, it's actually Diamond Sword attacking Blood Eagle, and actually the prophecy. I don't know if you guys have read the prophecies, but basically the prophecy is that Diamond Sword will strike too late, and they're preemptively attacking everybody in such a way that it makes them look like the bad guys, and that's why, for lack of a name, Donna Zubis, the woman that screams at you on Diamond Sword, she that's not really her name. That's what we call her. It's a joke. She's that's why she says honor will be sacrificed this day. She's saying basically that we're going to break the fire truce and attack Blood Eagle, and people aren't going to like us for this, but we have to do it. And actually, the new map, Arx Novena, is a Blood Eagle city. It's a civilian city that they're attacking and sieging. So they're doing something that's very, very, obviously dark side, I guess, for lack of a better word. But
Yeah, that's cool to see that. Well, good. Yeah, we've been mentioned that there's a lot of lore going in, and there are a lot of people really dedicated to lore. So it's nice to see that surviving because, well, how old is the? If you go all the way back to Earth Siege, you have quite a few things to go over, and a few thousand years at that. So it's really nice to see it all coming together. But how is that going to be implemented? Because we've been told numerous times that it's going to be mainly a multiplayer game. Is it going to be through the multiplayer in little segments, like almost Portal-ish, where we just play through the game and get little bits of storyline, or is there really going to be a dedicated format for it?
Well, the original thought was that we would do kind of like a storyboard of what is going on in the fiction of Tribes. We still definitely intend to do sort of like an intro video where we explain what the fiction is of this game. Obviously, since it's multiplayer, you're not going to get a lot of fiction in the match itself other than what they say already. But hopefully through the intro video, we can kind of explain what's going on in each map. If we need to add like they did in Tribes 2, where they had a little blurb of what was going on in the map in the loading screen, that's probably enough for a multiplayer game. But I mean, I like single player games, so I'm not a lore nut, but I like lore and I like immersion. So that's definitely there at the company.
Yeah, that's nice. I'm the same way. I mean, I like a good single player, and it's good to see that the work being done. I mean, you guys were working on Universe, so the idea of intensive lore was there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had, early on in pre-production of Tribes Universe, we had lots of good ideas as far as what we wanted to do with fiction. So we try to bring that over to Tribes Ascend, but obviously the gameplay comes first. So
the almighty HiRez looms over the lore and nerfs everything.
The kind of mentioned about gameplay comes first, and this ties into a different question. When you design the game, you know that it's kind of being designed for competitive players, and most competitive players do play on the lowest settings. Do you take any special measures for the low graphic settings, or as Tribes calls it, normal graphic settings? Do you do anything special for those to make it more visible for competitive players to get the information they need, or is it just kind of a unbiased scale that you guys throw in?
Well, it's a constant battle. I mean, obviously, like something that really bugs me right now is in Dry Dock, the foliage goes away, and that's kind of a big deal for players who like, seeing the high quality graphics. They're taking a hit even bigger than frame rate. They're not able to see through foliage, so that is going to be fixed. I'm definitely going to push for that to be fixed because I don't like it when people can see through something that you can't. So that's a perfect example of in low settings, I don't want to give an advantage other than frame rate gain. Obviously, if you want like a 100 plus frame rate, then you should be able to get it. But does that answer your question?
In sort of the opposite way I was expecting, but that's exactly all we needed.
Yeah, the thing, because Dry Dock right now, especially I believe Diamond Sword, the cliff overhead is just, a 90-degree corner, really, so if you played in the lowest. But really, Dry Dock's been a battle all through the beta, I guess, because it was your cinematic map that you made a trailer in and stuff. But is there any specific reason why, for instance, the overhead ships or something, that it's such a laggy map overall? Or is it kind of the guinea pig map to test things on?
There is a performance cost to the ships flying overhead. The reason why Dry Dock is the most or the slowest map is sheer population. I mean, there's just so much stuff in that map that it's just a really heavy map. I think initially we were having problems with the map crashing on most systems, so that was the biggest priority for everybody. We were all scrambling to try to, figure out what was going on, and we dropped light map resolutions. It was memory heavy, basically, and in 32-bit environments, once you go over a threshold, the exe just chokes. It just crashes. So that was first priority, to get the map running, obviously, on low-end systems, and we did that. I haven't really heard a lot of complaining about crashing in dry dock anymore, so I hope that we've nailed that one down 100%. So as far as the map running well, everything has a performance cost, and my big concern right now is just it's super polygon heavy. So I think we're crossing that threshold, and we just need to be a little bit more aggressive as far as LODs and cost of shaders and things like that. So it's something that we're doing right now. We're going through all the maps and making sure that they're reasonable as far as shader complexity and other things.
Just in my little newbie question, what would be an LOD? I think you've mentioned it a couple times.
Yeah, LOD stands for level of detail. Basically, it's a model swap when you see it in other games and in Tribes Ascend when a model pops, or there's lots of weird popping in models. It's because they're aggressively changing the polygon count of the model to make the game run better. It depends on how aggressive you are, as how much popping you see. I think the intention is in the future to actually add a slider that allows you to bump out the LOD change a little further on high-end systems, and then even pull it in closer on low-end systems. So we can scale a little better there, but we do intend to add that feature. It's just not in there yet.
Yeah, I've heard people actually mentioning. Well, I don't agree with them, but a lot of diehard Tribes players are asking for the fog. But I'm guessing, that was just the level of detail and the drawing distance. But I'm guessing that's not going to come back in a Unreal Tournament 3 game.
Yeah, the fog is a good example of how art can affect gameplay. And I don't think the intention is right now to ever bring in fog so close that you can't see, because that would affect every single map and every single player. We wouldn't want... If that was to affect gameplay that significantly, we would force everybody to have high fog. And in fact, early on, there were people turning it off in the I fog altogether, and they were saying, "Does this look better?" I was like, "No, it doesn't look better." But I don't really think that close fog will be something that we're going to do, especially to balance sniper rifles or things like that. If we do anything to balance sniper rifles better, it's going to be through gameplay. Game design, not through art.
Yeah, just small electric shocks being sent through the mouse of the player using it.
Well, I think that does it for my questions. If Greth or Joni have any more.
Yeah, I have actually a question. I'm not sure if this directly relates to you, but it is one of the things that has been keeping a lot of us and most of the people I know very busy since it was mentioned on the forum. I'll quote here what Stu said. He said, "Some additional ways to customize classes are coming in future patches." Now, is there anything you're allowed to release about that yet to us? Anything specific?
I wish. It's pretty exciting. I'm excited to see what everybody thinks about the change, but I can't really say much more about it. It is a good change, and I firmly believe that all the Tribes people followers and will really like what we're going to do with it. It's not, I wouldn't say it completely changes the game, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. So I hate to tease, but that's what Stu said is exactly what I can say, which is, additional ways to customize your classes.
Okay, and just to be safe, some of my TF2 friends, of course, immediately said hats, and I'm just checking that's not the case.
No, it's not. Okay. It's not skins. What we're going to do to customize your class visually is going to be a full model replacement. So like Todd said way back in the day, and I will confirm that we do intend to do bioderms at some point.
Bioderm.
We have not started working on them in the studio, but I have a concept, on my computer at work that's bioderms. So I like the bioderms too. So I'm excited.
That actually leads to my next question. About the full skin replacements, will we also be able to, for example, upload a clan logo and paste that on our ass?
That is something that I would like to do, but there's a lot of infrastructure surrounding uploading photos and approving them and things like that. So I don't In fact, for Tribes Ascend, the plan originally was to actually allow you to create your own tribe. That's what I was proposing. So, again, if we do Tribes Ascend, the Tribes universe, and we start that back up, I can't confirm or deny that will actually happen. But the idea was that you could pick your colors and you could pick your logo and go in like that. Now, that is a lot of infrastructure around that. So, I can't confirm that would actually happen, but it would be awesome as a Tribes player to be able to create your own tribe.
Agreed.
All right. The question about models actually raises one that I know someone on my team would be interested in. I play with a girl on my team, and a few other people have been wondering, what about female models?
Yeah, female models. The thing about female models is that when you add a factor of I have to do a female version of every suit, you've completely doubled your workload and doubled your memory footprint for everything. So I would like to support doing female skins. I'd hate to make them purchasable, but that might be what we end up going with. I'm not really sure what we're going to do about that. Trying to be open as possible without absolutely confirming things. Then people are going to get mad at me for not doing later. But
yeah, maybe first start with voice packs and all that, and maybe, well, because heavies and mediums, I don't think that if you're going to be very feminist about it, they should look the same, There shouldn't be any reason for it. You could give that angle to it.
It's a giant metal armor. It's not necessary that you see the breasts through it.
You don't like the boob window?
No, I do like the boob window, of course. But not necessarily in Tribes.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was the lead character artist for Global Agenda, and we tried to allow the silhouette to be feminine, but I think for Tribes, if we were to do, I don't really think we'd do heavy female armor. Didn't Tribes 2 not have any female armor? It was just a voice for heavies?
Female armor, but I don't think it was in heavy, like you said.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was not on the heavy armor, so I think
pretty
that's
sure
understandable.
The proportions on a heavy would look quite awkward.
I'm just seeing the fat Valkyrie. Dun, dun, da, 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 da.
Well, it's kind of hard to make a female heavy character, I guess, attractive, you'd say, because most of the time you'd want a female character to be attractive in a game. I don't know.
Well, Carmageddon had Burly Shirley.
Well, I think I'm still out. Does Joni or Greth have anything else?
Just one last question about customization, appearance-wise. Just a little suggestion that I'm pretty sure you guys have probably discussed. Coloring your vehicles, will that be an option at some point? Because I would love to hit someone with my bright pink trike.
We have talked about doing vehicle skins. I'm not really sure how we would implement that, but it's definitely something that has been talked about. It's on the table. We haven't been too worried about doing or talking through all the purchasable skins, I guess you'd call it, is what everybody's calling it. So I don't really know what's going to happen there, but we do intend to allow people to customize almost every aspect of their character without doing something silly like hats. So, vehicle skins are definitely, they've been talked about.
You just alienated a whole group of TF2 players.
Tens of thousands of TF2 players.
Well, you'll have a hat, but it'll go with the rest of your suit, so.
a paint-on hat and a paint-on monocle.
Yeah.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you very much for coming along. Greth, I know, has a match to get casting here. Going to give him some setup time.
Yeah, be sure to tune in, but it's when you hear this, it's already over, so check the VODs. There you go. You know what? We need to bring you back and just peer everything out of you in terms of lore, because I'm really interested in that part.
Yeah, maybe we can work on getting a lore thing together, but we can talk about this after we're done recording.
Sure. I'll be happy to come back on. I love talking about Tribes. I think that this is probably the best way to get information out as far as I want to be connected to the community, but at the same time, I don't have time to go through the whole forums and read every single thread. So, maybe you guys can bring some things to light that you feel are super important, and then we can answer them, whether it's me or Bart or whoever else.
Yeah, I'd suggest talking to Bart and actually taking one of his IRC shifts off of him. He'd be very happy, I think. But do bring some very strong armor with you.
Yeah, heavy armor necessary.
He said he sits on Tribal War forums, so I mean, if he puts himself through that.
Yeah, I've actually read Tribal War forums, the big threads, so.
Good luck on that.
Yeah, it's rough, but I understand that everybody's real passionate about the game and they want the best game, and the community over there is it's like the alpha male community. You have to beat somebody up to make them make yourself known. So I get the community over there, and I get that they're passionate about tribes, and it's fine that they rip us to shreds because they'll just make us make a better game. So be it.
Yeah, I think
look at it.
A nice closing statement might be that everyone's talking about balance. Everyone's like screaming in IRC. There's a lot of doom talk and all that. But in the end, because when you came on the podcast, and I thought, yeah, I haven't really thought about the art that much. I haven't, because I've just been playing the game. I've been enjoying it. I've been irritated because my jugger keeps getting killed, but all the effects and all that, it's all very nice. And when people aren't talking about it in a beta phase, that means they're okay with it and they like it. So, well done.
Yeah, that's the way I see that too, is that if the art's not getting in the way, then fantastic. That's the idea, is that, obviously gameplay comes first. We want a game that's competitive visually with the other games, as competitive as we can be as a free-to-play and a small team. But, obviously everything is there to serve the gameplay. And if we're not getting in the way and we're being pretty, then great. I think that a lot of people are concerned about bloom and other things like that. So anytime that there's concerns like with new maps like arcs, I'll definitely go back and make sure that the art is not getting in the way of the gameplay. So
yeah, and maybe the screen cracks. They're beautiful and they're very nice, but probably a toggle would be nice.
Certainly. Well, that does it for the 7th episode of Shazpod. I'd like to thank you very much again, Sean, for coming out. It was glad to have you. We look forward to having you on again.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
I also thank you, Joni and Greth, for coming along again. I look forward to seeing everyone playing the game, and thanks for listening. Send any questions to shazpodcast@gmail.com.
You got it right.
Listen, I know I did. I'm so happy. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming, everyone.